Good afternoon. Welcome to Munch and Learn. I'm Elizabeth Sloan, the Public Programs Coordinator at the Dixon. We'll go over a few reminders and pieces of housekeeping information before we start today's session. We're recording this session, and you can find each week's published talk on the Dixon's YouTube channel. So if you ever want to revisit a talk or recommend one to a friend, you can find them there. Since we're recording, we ask for everyone to remain on mute the entire time. If for some reason you accidentally unmute, please don't be offended if we remute you. If you have any questions during the talk, please write them in the chat. I will drop some reminders in the chat to put your questions there throughout the talk as well. And afterwards, I'll read the questions to our speaker and we'll get those questions answered for you. Now, I'd like to introduce you to our speaker. Noa Fodrie is a Memphis-born and bred artist and art educator. She graduated from the University of Memphis with a BFA in art education. For the past few years, she has taught art in the K-8 setting, but has recently transitioned to teaching college students. She's currently pursuing her MFA in art practices, painting and drawing at the University of Colorado Boulder. Noa, welcome.
Hi, I'm Noa. I am currently on campus, which is a glorious time. I just came from class. It's nice to meet you. Today I'll be talking about my practice. Hi, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, but it's very small.
Okay. Is this better?
Yes.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Noa Fodrie. I will be talking about my practice today. My work is listed chronologically while I walk through my artist statement. I'm currently cutting ties with the sinew and thread of my ancestors, still telling me I'm not Black enough, I'm not white enough, I'm not woman enough. My body has always been a subject of awe and strangers. My hair has become some fetishized fishing line pulling people in. The rest of my body is seen as up for grabs, like a prize in diversity bingo. Not wanting me, just claiming me. I'm no longer choosing an ache to remind me I'm living. Who was it for? I like my being when it's in my body, muscles better and nerves more. Visceral meaty pinks make their way into my paintings the more embodied I become. Over the past few years, the colors have become brighter as I break down the hazy memories and muffled side comments. A part of each color is mixed into the next for the sake of continuity in the folds of my movements and the folds of my skin, holding myself together. Each color is repeated 3, 5, or 7 times across the painting for the sake of mapping out myself with a sense of balance. I have healed my personal distance by photographing myself nude, dancing and finding the curves I once ignored. Layering 2 to 3 photographs through blind contour drawings, I'm reclaiming personal access to my skin. I am reclaiming the geographical contours of my body once illegally manifest as the need for sport. The shapes created in the overlay drawings are blurring movements together, remembering the motion that came before. You may point out the segment you enjoy, but only I know that you just put Black breasts on their walls. No longer am I separating myself from the body once violated. You still like my nappy hair and nipples when they are not made for you, when you don't recognize their presence in first encounter. In Miriam Shapiro's and Melissa Meyer's essay, Waste Not, Want Not, an inquiry into what women saved and assembled, they defined the term femage. They described it as what causes a piece to fall into the category of femage. While I have noticed that the majority of the items relate to my practice, I hope to especially emulate point 14. The work has a functional as well as aesthetic life, while the culture of women will remain unrecognized until women themselves regard their own past with fresh insight. By struggling with my body, my personal history, and my heritage, I can finally see myself with fresh insight. With this in mind, I hope to work within the artistic tradition of femage, especially those leaning into photo montage paintings or ceramic work, rubbed smoother than my body will ever be. I want my ceramic pieces to be as tempting to hold as the quilts of Southern grandmothers in faith wrinkled. At least if my art is concrete, then my body there becomes harder to break. If I take my body down to its simplest shape, movement, form, and color through my work, then I can be pillaged no more. This is example of said ceramic work. I am born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. I was born in 1995, which is right in the middle of all the books and papers coming out about biracial children and what do we do with those. It's been a fascinating time. I bounced in between Shelby County and Memphis City schools when they were still Shelby County and Memphis City schools. There was no multiracial option. I didn't see that until standardized testing nationwide, junior year of high school. My mom always wrote in both because both were true. In Shelby County schools, they picked Black. And so in second grade, when I got my beloved TCAP test, they told us to check our information. And I said, oh, it says I'm Black and I'm white. And they told me, well, they can only pick one, and that's the one they chose. In middle school, I was in a Memphis City school where the same things were written down in the same order. They decided I was white. And then moving back into Shelby County during high school, all of a sudden I was Black again. Both are true, but it's isolating having part of you shut off or told that it doesn't exist or belong. Growing up, I got the "what are you" comment a lot, and when I would respond, the immediate following question was, are you sure? Yes, I know who my family is. But it was this strange like constant, or people walking up to me and immediately putting their hands in my hair and saying, oh my gosh, you're like a poodle, while also seeing the exact same people ask a dog owner's permission before they touch their dog. I was never asked. So through those experiences, reliving them over and over and over again, it becomes exhausting, both emotionally and mentally. So I started to just kind of lift myself out of my body, and I would exist and I would participate and I would be technically there, but I was never really there. And it wasn't until college that I realized that you don't get to pick and choose when that happens, because then I could no longer feel joy. I was in all those moments, I was there, but I couldn't feel it. So I decided to break it all down. My first 2 years of college, I was living in Colorado, and immediately got so you're from the South. Was it super racist there? To which I'd answer, no, people are just very upfront about what they feel. And yes, sometimes that's racist, but at least I know what to expect. While moving to where I went to college, everyone was very good at saying the right things until they were drunk. And then everything came out at once. Or major events would happen, and I'd be told all the time, you're not really Black, you're not really Black, you're not really Black. By white folks, until the Baltimore riots happened my freshman year, then they said, control your people. Or until this big race thing happened on social media. on this anonymous site my sophomore year, and like watching all the ways people felt, but they never would say out loud, but because no one would know who it was coming from, they could be as upfront as they wanted. Which is very isolating in a lot of senses, and it made a lot of people feel unsafe. And between that and my sister getting sick, I moved home to finish college, which healed my relationship with Memphis in a lot of ways, especially in the we can't let you have all of who you are at once. And during my time coming back, I let myself feel it all again, and I forced myself into my body, and I was uncomfortable with my body. By the time I was 21, I had 2 breast cancer scares. So my ability to feel safe in myself wasn't fully there, but I made it there. So I would put on music and dance naked and take pictures. And then doing a blind contour drawing, I wasn't looking at the surface where I was drawing. I was staring directly at the photograph for minutes at a time, having to look at myself instead of just looking and saying, okay, we're done. And then having to look at myself over and over again on a canvas or panel, which was in more ways than I was expecting, really empowering and made me feel safe, if not at least in different environments than in myself, finding myself as a sense of refuge. Yeah, but the photos aren't for you. You'll probably never see them. Actually, if I have me saying it, you will never see them. They will be destroyed before you ever could, because they're not for you. They're for me, and you get to see the remnants that I decide you get to see. You get to see the parts that are still visible with overlaid drawings, but you don't get all of it. Everyone's already taken everything that they want from me, and now I get permission to say no. That's my process. That's what I do. I have sketchbooks, as most people do. I'm very forgetful, and I struggle with not having all my colors wind up in a certain value area. So I put down color swatches of everything so I can't forget. And then I can take black and white pictures to make sure I'm being very variable in my colors, which has proven very helpful. And then over time, I can see how my colors have shifted or played off of each other and developed. I have a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I started a book called The Body Keeps the Score, Brain, Mind, and Body, and the Healing of Trauma. And I thought I was ready. I was not. It was a very painful book. I started, got maybe 2 chapters in, and didn't touch it for months. And then finally slowly moved through it again. It is not a thin book, but there's a lot of lovely studies done about how people hold trauma in their bodies and how it changes the wiring in their brains, and then ways of possible moving past that or healing those areas. It was very uncomfortable in a lot of ways, but I highly recommend, because now I feel like I understand myself at a more honest level, and I can look at those parts of myself that I wish didn't exist, and instead find truth there and healing and acceptance there, and saying, okay, that exists, and then being able to let it go. Yes, so I highly recommend. I actually bonded with some doctors unexpectedly the past few years, including my primary care physician, about this book, which is wild. They were like, oh, have you ever read this book? I was like, matter of fact, yes, I have. It hurts. And they're like, yes, it does. But it's been so interesting as I've been able to process through things and been forced to process through them. The way all of a sudden I'm not in pain all the time, my shoulders can drop, my heart isn't racing in certain environments. I can now teach in a college classroom and not feel terrified or uncomfortable or on guard all the time. I could work in a room of middle schoolers, which was my last job, working with middle schoolers, actively in the middle of a pandemic, teaching art online. It was a lovely growing experience. I learned so much about myself. Thank you for that moment, Manitou Springs School District 14. I'm out. But even being with them, you know, seeing their dynamics and remembering where I was in my sense of mentality and safety in middle school, and hoping to provide a safer space for them than I was offered. And for that, I'm grateful. It's been uncomfortable, but then I can see people better. And I can see where they might be acting like things aren't happening, but it influences the rest of their daily life. And so then those little things that come up and happen that you have to deal with, everything becomes more difficult. So if I can at least take pressure away in one area, then they can feel safe again. The big what's next? What are you doing with your life, Noah? I have no idea. I just started grad school. I'm getting my MFA in painting and drawing, which is also very fun because instead of making artwork on my bedroom floor in between teaching, I get to make it in a large room that I don't know what to do with because I've never had this much space before. I'd like to make very large work. These works, most of my work was 20 by 24. Felt like a very comforting number. For whatever reason, even numbers freak me out, but 20 by 24 felt good. So I don't know. I have access to a kiln again, so I've been making sweet little woogles. I got a tufting gun to make rugs. It is currently in my trunk. I will have to move it in later, but I am so excited. I want to make a space. I don't know if I were to show everything at once. I want to make a space where people feel held, like they walk in and they just feel comfortable and they feel like they can breathe and that their heart rate can drop to a normal level, instead of being so anxious that it's constantly like a hummingbird's wings. They can be safe and comfortable. I want to make objects that are very clear that you can't touch this. You can't touch this. You cannot touch this. You can touch this one, but you can't touch this. Kind of reminding people and forcing it to their brains a little bit. Like if people set boundaries, they're there for a reason and they're meant to be respected. And someone else watching you shouldn't have to remind you. You should know yourself. You should see it and hear it and say, okay, that's yours. That's not mine. And then everyone will say, thank you. But then also making objects that can be touched and held. I know at least for myself, walking into museums and galleries is so fun. I love it. My last boss gave me a sticker that says, I cry in art museums. Yes, I do all the time, actively. I did the other day, but it's also torture. I'm a very tactile person. Obviously, my entire career in life is working with my hands. So walking in and being told, don't touch anything. You see this thing that's very fuzzy or has a lovely texture and you can see every piece of it, but you can't touch it. That's so difficult. And I know it's difficult. And sometimes it keeps people from actually being able to see the rest of the work because they're so distracted by the fact that they can't touch things. So I want to make things that can be held. And so you're holding this thing and you're moving it around so that you can focus on the thing you're looking at. Because even though it says do not touch, you can touch something. So you feel open to seeing, and then you feel open in the space that you're in, and you have something that forces you back in your body because you can hold it. I have previously worked with middle schoolers. I have worked with preschoolers. I've worked with kindergarten. I have worked a little bit with high school, not in a classroom environment, but a little bit. My favorite is preschool to second grade because they're precious itty bitty and they love when I read them books in dramatic voices. And they come in and they're like, "You're so beautiful. I love you." And it's like, I just woke up. Thank you. I was very sad today. I appreciate your love. So they're the best because they're so honest. They aren't in a place yet where they've necessarily been told what to think, hopefully. Or if they have, they forget immediately, don't process it fully. And so then they do what they want again, which in some ways is chaotic when it's like, hey, here's a pair of scissors. Don't touch their hair. Don't touch your clothes, touch this paper, not that paper, touch this paper. Because everything is made to become scissors, obviously. But at least in their minds, they're so open to others and to possibilities. I don't know, I want to rekindle that sense of childhood, like wonder and safety. And I want to go prancing around and feel good about it. And sometimes I do. I sing half my words and I wiggle and dance around because I don't know how to sit still. And because it's nice. It makes me feel better in spaces. It makes me feel like I have room in spaces. I also sing when I'm nervous, so that's part of it. Or excited. You can't ever truly tell. But I've worked with students. This is my favorite project to do with students. I give them all the chance to donate 1 to 3 songs, depending on the size of the class, across different genres to a community playlist. And I'm like, you are responsible for looking at the lyrics and making sure they're clean. And then I walk around and before I write them down, I double check with them because we are making a space that is safe and comfy for all. So I add it to a community playlist and I hit shuffle. So then the playlist is on the screen so they know I'm not picking my favorite song, it's on shuffle. Let Spotify decide for us. And I play a song on repeat for 15 to 20 minutes. They have tempera sticks, acrylic paint, watercolors, and they have 15 minutes to make an abstract drawing where I'm like, don't be representative, make how you feel. Like, how can you take line, shape, and color and display how this music makes you feel? And the timer goes off and they put it away and they make another one. And we do that usually 5 times. And at the end, they get to lay them all out and look at how as genres change, as music changes, they're usually divided out into multiple days. How when the day changes, their work looks different. And we get to talk about like, okay, what do certain colors make you feel? What do certain lines or shapes make you feel? Is yours from this song the same as theirs with this song? No, and that's okay, and that's beautiful. That different things can make us feel different ways. And with that, also teaching them, we see artwork differently because we have different backgrounds. And that's beautiful and that's okay. And you don't have to have a degree in art to go and look at art and talk about art confidently because you were allowed to have an opinion and that's healthy. I always do the project with them. These are mine from that project. It always makes me really happy because they're super calm and it's the one project where they want to be quiet. Where they're normally like yelling and in deep angst because they're 13. But for this one moment, like they feel calm. And I want to join them in that. So we do it together. I have mine from this last semester all up on my wall because I don't want to forget them. And I don't want to forget that constant reminder that they gave me. The past 2 years teaching was really hard. It was a pandemic. A lot of things happened. In our world at large, especially starting last summer, not that it was new, it was just that everyone else finally caught on. And so I realized it's a waste of my time to fake it. It's a waste of energy, and it doesn't help anyone. So I started being honest. If I came in one day and I was really upset, like, I'm sorry guys, I'm not in the best headspace, and I'm going to be here, and I'm going to be present, but please know if I, am quieter or more reserved, or if I don't see my normal self, this is why. And then because of that, they're like, oh, well, if you can be honest, I can be honest too. Not only with others, but with themselves. And it's a lot easier doing that with middle schoolers than with college students or with people my own age or older. So I have them up to constantly remind me of those moments, because they're magical human beings, even though they outgrew me very quickly. So that's my work. That's what I do on a daily basis. Yes, I guess before I move on, does anyone have any questions?
All right, I'll get us started with a question. And remember, everybody, to just drop your questions in the chat. Sorry, did I? Okay. So okay. Sorry. My brain has to catch up with my mouth a little bit. So, thank you for sharing what's been a very deeply personal process for you. I know having these conversations and sharing these things isn't easy, and we're very grateful that you came here and shared this with us today. So I guess my first question is, in your art, you're a Memphis native, and you talked about your experience in Memphis. Does Memphis and your experience in the city reflected in your art in any way?
Yes. Making work in high school and early college, people were like, oh, you make art, are you a painter? And I was like, absolutely not. No, I'm not. I do all these other things. I like printmaking. I like photo processes. I like embroidery. I like all these other things. Why would I ever paint? And really made me nervous, the larger issue. And then when I transferred to the University of Memphis, I had to take all these classes in order to get my art ed license. And one of my last studio classes that I took before student teaching was painting and drawing with Jed Jackson. Hi, Jed, thank you. Where I had to paint because it was required for me to graduate. And it was great. And I was like, oh, this isn't terrifying. And then I realized it was so physical in ways that I wasn't expecting, and brought me into this one space, that it made the most sense for me to start making work like that. And I think if I hadn't had to move back to Memphis, that wouldn't have been the same. And then moving back to be closer to my family really helped me find a sense of grounding. So even though I was processing through all these things, I had some sense of stability around me. Yeah, I don't know. And the people in Memphis are beautiful, and there's so much movement and liveliness and culture that is not everywhere. Let me make that clear. Hold on to it. It's so good. Yeah, so I think that influenced me as well, just like wanting to find some of that brightness and bring it into my work was important. Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So another question I had is, you mentioned that you create art that's both not for touching and that's for people to touch. When you're creating the art, the different types of art, either people to touch or not. Is there a difference in your process? Is there a difference in your method? How do you decide which pieces are okay for people to touch and which aren't?
So far, I haven't had space to make things or experiment with materials to find things for people to touch, so I'm working on it. That's my next step of figuring things out. When I was teaching, everything was to touch because everything was an example or a way of demonstrating or letting people try things out. So everything I made was very collaborative because it had to be for things to make sense with them. So I'm not sure, maybe that process will look like having a space for people to be able to make and make things themselves or add to a piece. I'd like to make a giant fake fridge so people can put things up on the fridge and maybe take some of my work and add to it. If they're like, I don't like this color, I'm gonna change it. And I'll say, okay, that's fine. I don't know. So I'm still trying to figure that out. But I wanna at least make some sort of space within an exhibition where people feel like they can also fold and make things. So I'll keep you posted.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Noa? Just drop them in the chat.
If not, that's okay. I can show you something else.
Okay, great.
Okay. This past year, I applied to programs, didn't get into a program that provided enough financial security for me to leave my job. So I did a year in Western Colorado University's Gallery and Museum Management program, where I got to learn about curating work and exhibiting work and how you formulate those spaces for others. And with that, I had to make a website. So I have a website if you're ever curious. I have an about page. When I have the time, I would love to curate again. I curated one show for my program. So I made an exhibition like around this similar idea with a group of artists. Yes, except the cookies. And so I asked all of them for music or albums that influenced their practice and got to add it to a group playlist. If you'd like to listen to what affects their work, then it's here. And then an exhibition catalog with still work and programming. If you ever want an activity to do yourself, I give you a possibility with a big to-do. And it doesn't have to look pretty, and it's better if it doesn't look pretty. But if you feel comfortable just using materials, if it's crayons and markers and colored pencils, I don't care. If it's pens and pencils, I don't care. Just use what materials you have access to. It's a very calming process to listen to music in a sense of repetition. You can pick a song from this playlist or you can play your own. So I challenge you to do the same thing I did with my students, and make work and ask yourself about what you see when you're done. And do it again if you want, and again and again and again. If you just like it and it calms you down, or if you're like, hey, I did it once, leave me alone, that's also okay. If you do it, I'd love to see it. My email address is there just because I'm curious. And it brings me joy seeing people feel comfortable enough to make work and to share it. And then down below, accept the cookies. There is a virtual gallery because during the pandemic, showing in person didn't always exist, which was heart-wrenching. So I made a virtual space instead. So if you would like to go see a gallery opening, but you're nervous to walk in a building, it's okay. I've got you. You can come see this space. So it's here for your viewing pleasure if you're ever curious. But I think the most important thing I want to emphasize is you don't have to. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say, I have too much on my plate right now, or I don't feel comfortable. All of that is valid. But I'd also love to meet with you. So if you do it, that'd be great. So that's all. And then as I make more work and document it, I will update this page with my portfolio. Currently, it's all here chronologically, so the further down you scroll, the older it becomes. Yes, so I'm excited to extend it and make more work and show more work and feel comfortable making work that's gonna fail eventually. And like it's failed before. I've painted over plenty of things or gotten really sad and saying, I can't look at it again. I recognize that when I am depressed, all my colors turn brown and like really ugly, muddy browns, not even good ones. So then I have to inevitably paint over it. Anyway, so as I update things, they'll be here. And if you would like to look at things closer, you can click on them and see them up close and what material it's made with and at what size. Because I know the scale of the work might affect how it's viewed. Yes, so that's there and an option for you if you would ever want to see it.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yes.
Noa. Okay, so we do have a couple of questions. Karen asks, do you always make art with music?
Yes. Maybe it's because I'm uncomfortable with silence, but more than anything, otherwise my brain floats and I get distracted easily, and I get pulled away to things that don't really matter, especially in that moment. So I listen to music to keep me in one space and to keep me focused. And because music makes me feel safe and comfortable, like I have a space to be. So I always listen to music. Though what I listen to varies greatly. I will only ever listen to country music if I'm homesick. The only time. But otherwise, I listen to it all. Yes, thank you, Karen, for your question.
Right, give it just another minute or two to see, does anybody else have any more questions for Noa? I have a question. You mentioned hoping to one day be able to create a space where people can create art and add to art in like a community collaborative sense. What has brought you to that desire? I know some artists do that, but other artists don't like the idea of having people writing over their art, because obviously art is very deep and personal experience. So what has led you to that desire to create that?
I think a big part of it is working with kids. I think that's the biggest drive in a lot of what I do is working with kids, especially younger kids, and making things together. And I want to bring out that sense of childhood wonder and wiggliness in adults. And so giving them a space where it almost pulls them back to that mindset of being okay participating in something with others, because I know a lot of work that we do is very personal, and you do it with yourself, or you do it technically with the team as you pass it on and then you're done. Yeah, so I think bringing other folks back to that childhood sense of like not fearing making something look bad is why I want to do it. But again, it's finding space to make it happen. So eventually, that'll be something that I make.
All right, thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Noah, for coming and talking to us. Thank you for attending, everybody. Next week's program will be looking toward fall, and the talk will be given by Julie Spear, member of MGC, Garden Club of America, and a floral design judge. If you aren't currently a Dixon member, we invite you to renew or join. We'd be grateful to add your name to the list of members who help make Dixon the special place it is. We invite you to come in person to Dixon and see the current exhibitions by Wayne Thibault and Greeley Myatt, as well as the Meet the Dixons exhibit in our interactive gallery. Have a great afternoon. See you next week. And again, thank you so much, Noah.